And all right. Launch and then.
Okay, the recording has started. So,
okay.
So Martha, would you like to tell us a little bit about the survey? Have we gotten any responses yet?
Yes. So as of this morning, we have 3 responses, and so I was planning on sending out a reminder this afternoon. I've only sent it so far to the Fact2 campus representatives, and that's about a little over 200 people, I think. And I'm also going to send it out.
Probably more like about 90 or 100, I think. Because there's
okay.
there's two, yeah.
Yeah, I forget the email. Okay. Somewhere between 90 and 200.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 or 2 per campus. I think most
exactly. Yeah. Oh, right. And there's 64 campuses, so.
And some just have 1.
Right. So you're right about. How about we call it 100? But anyways, okay. So not as many as 200, but about 100. So I sent it to about 100 people so far, and I'm also going to send it to the CIOs this afternoon, along with a reminder to the Fact2 people. So far, 3 responses. I haven't looked at the responses yet, to see, what people are using as far as adaptive learning. But last week I was at the Doodle conference, and they talked a lot about Waymaker, which sounds like a pretty good tool for adaptive learning. But it talks more about. It has a pretty prescribed, as far as it has a pretty prescribed set of what you need to do, or a list of what you need to do, but it will tell you, whether you're still, depending on how you scored on a certain quiz, whether you need more work in a certain area or not. So it's a form of adaptive learning.
Yeah, I actually, just jumping in for a second, I actually talked to one of the authors of one of the Waymaker packages, and David Wiley, briefly at OLC. And one of the things, they don't really claim it to be adaptive learning. They say it's somewhat personalized learning, because it does give feedback and it does allow for repeated attempts at things, but basically everyone ends up with the same pathways. So it doesn't really adapt based on how you do. It gives you some mastery learning type capabilities, which is a good thing, and we can write that up. But I think we should describe the features,
Okay. All right. Yeah, anyway, so I learned a little bit more about that. But yeah, other than that, I don't know much more about the other tools, except what we've learned in these meetings.
And one other thing I discovered while I was there is I knew that Waymaker had a charge of something like $25 per student, but in the SUNY system, apparently we have a license for it, so anyone can adopt it, and there's no cost to the institution or campuses, at least for some period of time.
Really? So I wonder if there's a way we could, but it's not like strictly adaptive learning, it's more personalized learning. Is that something that we should be advertising more, or because?
Well, I think the SUNY OER services is advertising and pushing it, but we can include that as one of the packages that's just not perhaps fully adaptive. But again, originally I think we were called personalized/adaptive learning, or something, or personalized adaptive learning. So I think it comes under the broad category, and we can write up what the characteristics are and what packages are available, as well as the cost, because we do know more about that because it is already adopted by SUNY.
Okay.
And Martha, because there was an issue with the link the first time, that day when you send it, I started drafting an email to send to the ESC people, and then when I discovered that, I didn't, so I totally forgot about it. So you might be getting more surveys. I did send it to a whole bunch of people.
That's fine. I was just thinking, because of that mistake with the link with the first time, when I send out the reminder this afternoon, then I'll also send out and in case the first link didn't work for you, or you didn't send it out, or
Precisely.
exactly, here's another link. feel free to send this out with this message, and and let me know if you have any questions.
I did actually request it to be posted also. We have like, we call it the ESC Exchange. It's like a news type thing that all the faculty have access to and the professional employees. So they just posted today. So again, I hope that we'll get something from ESC.
Okay, good. Yeah, and it's still it's early. Well, it's not early in the semester, but it's early in sending this out. And also at a time when, like, I think I sent it out the Monday after Thanksgiving, or I'm not sure, or maybe
it was either right before or right after, I think.
Right, yeah. And so pretty much either time, it was at a time when, people are sort of thinking, oh, yeah, I really need to think about finals now. And since the fact, too, since they have one faculty representative and one instructional technologist, there's probably at least half a chance that, someone it's reaching is thinking more about finals than this stuff.
I have a question related to timing. Yeah. There was no deadline. So until when are we collecting this information? We didn't put a deadline or anything, and even the fact of exactly what you just said, right? Mm-hmm. And for us, the instructional designers are trying to finish up with all the courses that need to be up and running in January, and the faculty is tied up with grading. So I wonder if we can just, in the follow-up, perhaps we should have a deadline and make it a deadline like the beginning of next semester, so there's plenty of time, and then send another reminder after the holidays. That's the only thing I can think of. The more you send reminders, the more, it keeps popping out of people's email.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I think that's a really great idea personally. And maybe something like, is beginning of February a little too late, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think we probably should keep trying to collect information until we have a reasonable sample. It would be nice if we heard something from each campus, but one problem is people may not always know what's happening on their campus. So, the people who get it may not feel comfortable responding. So,
or not know who to pass it on to.
Or not know who is doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just might get it in their email train and think, who's Martha Golden? Why should I care? And and move on. I can totally understand that as well. With maybe a few frequent or a few more reminders, and also end of February. Exactly, Audie. I also get like hundreds of people, not hundreds, but there are days where it just feels a little overwhelming. So, and I know other people have come back to me and said, oh, did you get my email about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, oh, no. And I'm thinking about one right now that I got a few days ago that I still haven't done anything about. So, yeah, it's all kind of snowballing. So I'll in the reminder that I'll send out today, I'll put February, like a beginning of February deadline, and then, but not telling people that we're going to probably continue collecting information, especially if there isn't a huge sample size, but just to kind of give them that impetus, or that sort of
although if someone gets something now asking something by the beginning of February, it might very well end up on that back burner. So maybe we should hold off with a deadline until maybe middle of January or something, and then say, we'd really like this information within the next couple of weeks so we could generate reports and so on.
That's a good point, because he would be like, okay, I don't have to take care of it, and then put it in a folder. There you go.
We could post something too in the campus reps group too, with a link to the survey in case they lost the email or deleted it or something.
I don't think we even have a meeting until next year, right? For the Fact 2 reps. So I don't know when our next meeting is. We had one on October 30th, but I really don't know when the next one is.
I don't remember the date, Jeffrey. It's somewhere in the spring.
That's what I thought, in the spring. So nothing until then, which is not good.
Reps? Yes, the campus reps meeting. webinar.
Well, we have the CIT is the big one, and we usually do a webinar in April.
Yeah, it's usually in April.
We could move it around, though, if it would be helpful to you guys. So,
but we could send them mail even if we don't have an official meeting.
Right.
Use the workplace group to communicate with the reps. We have 123 members in there right now.
123. Thank you, Jeff.
So we know the number now. Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, it's like there's millions and millions of campus maps.
Do we have the software to pull out the people who responded and only keep sending repeated invitations to people who haven't responded?
Actually, yeah. I'll just look at the survey and see who's responded so far. Right now, that's very doable because there's only 3.
It's not hard to delete 3.
Right. But, or I'm not going to delete that. I mean,
I meant from the list of emails, yes.
Exactly. So right now it's only 3. However, when things get to be a bit, when it's more than 3, like a lot more than 3, I think what I'll do is I'll put if you've already received this, or, something about, I'm sending this to everyone, and if you've already done it, please ignore.
But if we're able to, not keep, I mean, I'm thinking
a disclaimer. Thank you, Audrey.
Sending emails once a week. We could just pull the names out of people that have been good, or we can just say, if you respond to us, we'll stop coming after you like this or something.
Yeah, I guess I could sort of keep an incremental email and where I take off the people who have responded.
It's not such an interesting idea that we have to keep talking about it, but it was a thought.
Yeah, but it's something to think about. Let me think. The other thing I was thinking of was maybe for what I was going to put in the reminder email was just congratulations. I don't know if I want to call out people who have already responded.
No, it's just too much work for you. I mean,
I don't mind. I mean, but I know in the past when I've been in classes where the instructor did that, it was kind of impetus, congratulations to X, Y, and Z for participating in the discussion. I hope the rest of you do.
Yeah, right. We'll enter you for a grand prize drawing.
Well, we could send an email and post it in Workplace, and just say, if you have not already responded, we'd appreciate your responses.
Yeah.
You can always just also include a line saying thank you to those who have already responded to our call.
Right.
We really appreciate it. And that might make some people feel guilty.
Oh, yeah. It also won't point out just that we've only got 3 responses.
Right.
Yeah.
I do that with students when I want stuff for students, and it always works.
Are you saying that Guilt is a adaptive tool?
Definitely.
Yes.
Good question.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I'm Jewish, so I know all about guilt.
I'm a member of the same tribe.
There you go.
I actually feel guilty even telling you that.
Exactly. Of course you do. It's Catholics and guilt, same, different food, same guilt. So, so there's many ways I know how to implement that.
Okay, so we'll hold off on any analysis until we get more than 3 responses. But
picky.
Okay.
We could look at what we have so far. Make a comparison. 3. We have 3, not none. We have 3. 3 is more than none.
John, is there any outreach to other university systems?
Well, I did meet with a few people when I was down. I had that on the agenda a little bit later, but I did meet with representatives from a few campuses who've been using it. Arizona State and UCF, and I think it was Colorado Tech.
I was thinking maybe Sean over at San Diego State might be able to get this out over there.
Well, this part is just the part of the research on what's happening in SUNY. There's another group that's working, which is actually the next item on the agenda. So we were first trying to find what applications were in SUNY for that portion of the report. Then we're going to look more broadly. But instead of just sending it out to one system, we're doing more of a web search to find articles and reports and so forth. Because that way we'll capture a whole lot more than any survey from, there's 3,000 or 4,000 higher ed institutions out there. So
just a few. That makes sense.
and
Apology.
also talking with the vendors, we can get representatives from some campuses where they're using things more extensively and get contacts through them. So.
All right.
Okay. So anything else related to the survey?
That's all I can think
Okay.
of. But definitely, like, you have some great suggestions, and if there's any others that you think of later, feel free to email me. And I promise not to ignore it.
Okay. Then the next item is Karen, the other group, the part that is gathering information from other places.
Right. So we have not met for a while because I kind of dropped the ball. I was out for a while. We have a Zotero bibliography growing. It has about 10 articles in it right now. I can certainly, I'm a 12-month employee, so during this little break here, I can certainly do some review of the stuff that's in there now, but we need more content, and I'm not quite sure how to gather that. I'm also wondering in terms of data, because we're talking about getting data from other systems. Is there anybody who will give us some data like OLC or some higher EDUCAUSE? Is there some place where we can get some of this information about what's going on across the country? I don't have any. I'm up here in the Northeast. I call it the Northeast Kingdom because I'm from Vermont, but upstate, so way upstate in the North Country. I don't really have connections to other schools to help get this going. So I'm going to need help from you guys to figure out how to get the rest of that data.
Yeah, I think one issue I ran into, and I've got to check with some people here, I've got to do a little more reading, is trying to connect to that library in Zotero. I have it set up so my web version of the account connects, but when I actually run Zotero on my computer and try to save anything to it, it doesn't show up as a list. And I have no idea how. I spent about an hour reading through documentation on that today without any success. I'll talk to some other Zotero users. So I have been gathering some things, but it's a whole lot easier using, the plugin in Chrome than to have to manually input all the information.
Right.
But I'll work on that.
Well, anything that I can do to help this, because I just, it doesn't matter to me one way or another how this all happens. I just wanted to get something out there so that we could get started. If it's easier for us to put it in another format, or even to have content put through someone like me and then I can put it in here and spit out a bibliography, that's fine. I certainly have the time. I'm not sure how Zotero works. Like when I go ahead and sync mine, I don't know if I'm getting everything from everybody else. I'm assuming I am, but there's only, like I said, there's only 10 things showing up on mine.
Yeah, I only saw things from you and Keith when I tried connecting this morning to try to, once again, try to bring things over.
Right.
I haven't used it. I use BibTeX, and I haven't really done much with Zotero before, but or at least not in a decade or so. But I'll try it. We should be able to get that working. And if anyone's not in Zotero and would like to be able to save information to that, contact Karen and she can add you to the list.
Yeah, I think, Karen, you sent out something to share with everyone, right?
I asked everybody, I believe, to give me the address so that I could put you into the Zotero. And then I think that I sent the instructions on how Zotero is supposed to work. Yeah, but like John said, it's not quite working as we thought it would.
Yeah.
It works for me on the web, but then I have to manually enter everything, which kind of defeats the purpose of,
So can I offload what we've got going up to the web, John?
Well, I think it is. So when I log into the Zotero website, I can see that in addition to my library.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm having trouble doing is moving things from my library to there, or connecting or directly saving things to the group library. And I have no idea why.
All right.
So that's my own problem with it. I've got to get that worked out, but I know it's feasible.
Karen, this is Mary. Can you see the articles I put in? John's mentioned you and Keith. I put some articles.
Maybe I may have missed it. I just looked at I saw there were
I just want to make sure I did it right.
Okay, so how do I know who put them in?
It says,
on the website, well,
it says added by.
Yeah.
When I go into
Mary,
you're showing up having added at least 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I saw the 2 names and I saw there weren't many, so I probably just looked at the top ones.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 6 members in the Zotero group at this point.
Okay.
Awesome.
Just to be clear, if I do need access to the Zotero, so I just email you directly, Karen, is that all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get that figured out. But in the meanwhile, we can keep doing things and saving them however we save them, and then we'll get them into the library at some point. So
John, how you and I spoke about possibly giving some of these duties out to people. How do we want to handle the
division of tasks?
The division of tasks for the greater looking at. I guess we're just looking at the U.S., right? Or are we looking at adaptive learning across the world?
I suspect we'll probably focus mostly on the U.S., but if we find some good case studies, there's no problem with including that.
Okay.
You know, I don't think we need to limit it to that, but I suspect most of what we'll find will be in English in any case. So, or at least the things that we find that some of us are able to read will be in English. So,
do you want to limit that task to this subgroup, or do you want to?
I think if anyone finds something, we should gather information from as many sources as we can, but maybe the subgroup can focus on how we're going to organize it and perhaps having a subgroup meeting, a subcommittee meeting, just to talk about maybe giving some specific tasks to specific people, where someone may focus on one aspect of it, another could focus on something else, and that way we could get some more targeted information gathering.
Okay.
Maybe. We did put together some higher level tags, and then we talked about adding more as we started finding things.
And I think that I did tag what I saw in there at the time. I'm not sure about the new things that were put in.
So maybe we should just call a meeting of the subcommittee and maybe a doodle poll, or we could hang out a little bit at the end if people could stick around and pick a time for the subcommittee to work.
Oh, that would be actually great.
Okay.
It's probably better than having a doodle poll.
It's quicker and more efficient. And my time frees up a lot now that this is the last week of classes. So.
Right, so does mine. Once grades are completed, the instructional designers get to breathe for a minute.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that. The next item on the agenda was, I just put in a note about the OLC adaptive learning. I got a lot of information there, and I intend to collate that a little bit, and I did a rough start on that, but I haven't gotten too far. Came back for the holidays. There was some issues with my father, but I did meet and got contact information from, I think, 6 or 7 of the vendors, either a rep. In many cases, it was the chief operating officer. Sometimes it was someone who works with institutions. I've written back to a couple of them so far. One of the things I requested from them when I could is a possibility of getting some test accounts. The Cogbook people said they were, was it the Cogbook? Cogbook said they were very comfortable doing that. Realize that one of the others I talked to the most, because they were pretty well represented there, said they weren't really that sure about that because all of their material is custom built or is built by the ground up by the instructor or in the instructor working with them. So they don't really have any full packages that they can share. However, I talked to Chuck Zubin. I mentioned that before. He's from Central Florida, and they've got a lot of material, and they've been working in a consortium between UCF and Colorado Technical Institute, I forgot the full title, but a Colorado institution, and they've been doing a lot of development, and he indicated that they'd be able to share some of their materials. So I've got to contact, get Chuck and the people from Realize It together, and we should be able to get access to a platform that at least has some subset of information from a course once they get approval to share it, because they don't have test accounts or demo accounts with anything in them. They're empty, and one of the concerns they have is if they just gave us all empty accounts, we'd have to build something together, and it wouldn't be as, it tends to be off-putting. They said that usually when they've done that, they haven't got much interest. It's much more effective when people make a commitment to them, which, you know, I said, well, people might be reluctant to make a commitment without actually seeing how it works. So, but I think there are possibilities there. And I talked to some people, the people from most of the others weren't able to say much about it, but they said they checked back when they got back to their institution. But I did meet several people who were presenting. I think there were about 6 or 7 sessions, if I recall correctly, on adaptive learning implementations. Arizona State had, I believe, 4 or 5 presentations on it with a variety of platforms. They also have a lot of material on the website, a lot of descriptions. I think Keith may have posted something from there before. I don't remember offhand. I remember there was one institution that Keith had posted that had a lot of material. So I'm going to go through the program in more detail and make sure I didn't miss any others, because there were sometimes there was more than one session on adaptive learning going on, and there were 2 adaptive learning sessions going on while I was presenting. But I do have the name and the contact information from everyone who presented on that. So I'll go through that. But there's a lot of people out there using it, and there were a number of vendors represented. So
speaking of Arizona State, I just signed up to pilot one of their geosciences course materials for my geology course in the fall, next fall. So I'll be back into their platform with all their adaptive learning bells and whistles.
Excellent. Yeah, they were actually using a number of them, from what I remember, a number of different platforms in different departments. So, but I did make some contacts, and I'll share those as soon as I can get them in. At the end of the semester, you know, is a little tough. But one of the things I did start to put together, and let me share the screen. And I wanted to get some, before I put too much into it, I wanted to see if everyone thought this might be a productive approach. It's shared in our folders. And what I've got there, let me go here, let me jump up. I put together something on adaptive learning platforms or information gathering. I did some of this right after the last meeting, and this is where I'm going to start putting in information on contacts so we can follow up with people. And I followed up with more people than I put the information in, but I thought at the very least we could keep a running count or a running list of the platforms that we've heard over that we know people might be using, the website, and then just a question of whether they support prepackaged materials, whether they support user-created content. And then I put in a couple things, you know, on evidence-based practices, like whether they do allow repeated testing, whether they have built-in interleave and space practice. I suppose we should probably put in a column, just thinking about the Waymaker discussion a few minutes ago, of is it fully adaptive, or I'm not sure exactly whether fully adaptive, but we can put something in there that captures the degree to which it creates a customized learning path. Because Waymaker does create what they call personalized learning, where you can keep taking things until you master the material and get some review resources, but it doesn't really adapt and direct you to different types of materials based on some initial scoring. And then information on how it integrates with the LMS. And then this would be, I just put in a few categories here for contact name of the company or the vendor or the provider. And then I thought maybe having something else on some user contact where we could just put in information on faculty or administrators or someone from the institutions that are actually using the platform that we might be able to use to get some information on their experiences. Does this seem reasonable as a starting point?
Oh, yeah.
What else should we include in here? I mean, I think we'll discover some things as we go in terms of features that some will boast about, and then we can check to see whether others have those features.
Well, maybe, John, we should just add a column right now for miscellaneous notes.
That's a good, yeah. So let's do that right before the contacts maybe.
Yeah.
And that could capture other things. And then if it's something we want to check with everybody, we could just add new columns later.
Yep.
Okay.
And that way, if there's something idiosyncratic about it, we can just put it there. But if there's something that keeps coming up, we can add it.
Yep.
What else should we be looking for at this stage?
Do we want to add anything there as far as like whether it's used for credit, whether it's used instead of a college course, or if it can be used for credit? I don't know.
So the question is, would it be college courses or remedial? Because some of them, like Alex, primarily, well, I think it's a little bit tough because, for example, Alex, in my institution and many, is used to bring people up to speed. But there are programs like Wayne State where they use Alex actually to meet degree requirements for many levels. So it's basically an emporium type setting where students come in and they work through material, and then once they reach a certain threshold, they get credit for one math level. And then if they continue further, they can get credit for a second one. And so they could get credits for 2 or 3 math courses in a semester, or, basically allows them to accelerate their work. So that's kind of both credit and, so how would we phrase that? It's a good thing to capture.
Well, it could be something like is used for college credit, so that would, that way, like, if it's not used for college credit, if it's just used for remedial assistance, then they don't have to check it. But
well, we could put it in used for credit or
remediation.
And that way, we could allow for one or the other or both.
Yeah. Okay.
If that would be reasonable. Anything else we should add?
Capture information on cost structure for these?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how much we'll get from that, from the vendors, because what they tend to do is they tend to negotiate deals. But we could put in whatever information we have.
Okay.
And often they will give different rates for if it's by the course. Well, even that information could be useful. Sometimes they'll charge by the student, by the course, and sometimes they'll have department or institutional licenses. But we could at least try to gather that information and include that. Any other things offhand? We can always add more to it later, but is there anything else that jumps out at you? Because I want to get started on filling this out, because I did pick up a lot of brochures and things from the various vendors there.
Oh, good. So this was at the OLC.
At the OLC meeting in Orlando.
Okay.
2 weeks ago. Well, maybe 3 weeks ago now. A great meeting, by the way.
Yeah,
I did get to see a few people from SUNY there, a number of people. So, okay. Then the next item on the agenda is what we do next. And one of the things I'm wondering is, while we're gathering information on use cases, both within SUNY and more broadly, we should probably start thinking about maybe some webinar planning. Should we do that as a committee of the whole, or should we had said we'd start working on that once we had more information together. Is it a time for that group or to put a separate committee together, or might it make sense? I've been thinking a little bit more that it might make sense to do it as a committee of the whole, because we have 2 subgroups that'll be working on SUNY and the rest of the country, or maybe the rest of the world. And it might make sense to bring everyone together to talk about some good applications or examples of people who might be able to present on this. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea, John. I'm also thinking, though, later, after we've determined the subjects of the webinars, that then we do split into subcommittees. I don't know how people, because only to sort of streamline the process.
Okay, so the organization could be done through a subcommittee, but the actual topics would be.
Yeah. So initially, the topics and the initial topics, and then the organization, the structure, and whatnot would be like maybe through subcommittees.
And, I was thinking I didn't attend all the OLC ones, but maybe some of the people who already presented on adaptive learning at their institutions might be good people to present here because they've already got their presentations together. But we'd like to get more city people in too, because they'd be local resources for the campuses.
John?
Yes.
Also, the idea of getting people who are at OLC might be good to do that in the form of a podcast.
Well, we already did a podcast with Chuck a few months ago, but that's a possibility.
The one thing about the webinars is the time constraint. But, a series of webinars that are coming up from the Fact2 task group might get some traction, in addition to maybe doing a live event, depending on what juncture you feel that you want to do that. It's just a thought because the podcasts are really so effective, as a resource, a portable resource.
Well, if we do webinars with people, we'd have links that we could put in our report so people could review them asynchronously, too.
Yeah, that would work, too. Just a thought, because the formality of the podcasts, I'm using them more and more than I ever thought I would. And
I've been involved with them a bit more than I ever thought I would, too.
I've even listened to the one I made with you, but
that was a good one.
But the point is that they are getting more use than I ever would have anticipated at this point. To the point where I wish they didn't call them podcasts because it sounds so dated to me. But then again, you have to remember when they first came out, right?
Yeah, it came from the iPod, but which have mostly disappeared. But we could put together some podcasts. We have the technology
and the expertise.
Yeah. We also, with the podcast, we might want to. I know, when I'm in my car, driving places, that's a great time to listen to them. So that might be a good time to do that.
Yeah. So we could do some podcasts as a task group, or I do have a podcast that generally gets a couple hundred downloads for each podcast too.
It's for teaching. I love that.
Yeah. And we could do some things on that, or however we want to. But yeah, the advantage is you can listen to them while you're commuting. The disadvantage is if people want to present some statistics and charts and graphs showing the outcomes, you lose that visual element. So. Right. One thing we did, with my podcast, at least, one of the things we did was we had the micro-credentials group give a podcast, or 3 of the representatives of it. We could do the same thing with this group once we conclude things. Or again, we could just find some of the best cases out there, either in SUNY or elsewhere, and invite them to present. So.
Okay. Yeah, or I'm wondering if maybe a podcast, but also, in order to take care of some of the visuals, maybe also have not a webinar, but I don't know, or maybe a podcast out of the webinar. I don't know.
Well, what we do with my podcast is we do have a show notes file where we provide links to resources that are discussed. So
that might not be a bad idea.
Can I just ask a really small thought about the surveys? I'm trying to get those answered. If we just change, if we add a new title, or if we, what I mean, something like, is adaptive learning causing you more work, or changing your teaching style? Is adaptive learning something like that, which would catch people's attention rather than just the request for information, but, or even, is adaptive learning
Okay.
Adding
Adding to your
how has
workload.
adaptive learning affected your teaching, or something that's it feels like a personal question.
Yeah.
And even if people aren't doing adaptive learning, they might open it up to find out how it's affecting other people.
One problem, though, is that the survey as it's designed is sort of a one survey per institution. And the people responding may not be the people who are actually using it. And there may be dozens of people on a campus using it, and they might have very different responses. So, I'm not sure adding it to the existing survey would be useful, but when we find some really good examples of people using it, we could try to elicit that information, perhaps.
I'm just trying to think what emails I tend to open, and there are things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than survey of, vegan food products. I'm probably not going to open that. But has your life been lengthened? I would open that.
Okay.
Just marketing thought. Sorry.
So for the next the next thing then is once we gather this information, we'll meet and try to come up with at least some recommendations for webinar topics and perhaps some cases of people that would be good presenters for it.
Okay.
That's actually, John, what I was going to say. Why we don't wait until we get the information, because some topics might lead more to something like a webinar versus a podcast. And we don't have to have 10 of each, right? We can just say, hey, let's get a couple in here, a couple there, and that's enough.
And we might be able to find 2 or 3 people or 4 people who can do a panel presentation in a webinar on their experiences on their campuses. So we're a little early to really be discussing the topics, but I think once we have more information on what's happening in SUNY from the survey, and once we have more examples of institutions that have adopted adaptive learning either successfully or unsuccessfully, we could have some presentation. We can start to put that together, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, Audi said if the topics are similar, a virtual panel would be good. Okay, so we can do that. Now, what else should we be doing now? Anything else?
How are we going to use the survey information? Can we get started on that now? I mean, if we had the survey information, what are the 2 or 3 things we could do with it? That's kind of an open-ended question with potentially dangerous answers, but what I'm trying to say is, can we move ahead before we get the survey answers? Why did we make the survey? What are we actually trying to do? I think we're trying to increase the use of adaptive learning.
Well, the survey is to find out where we are in terms of adaptive learning. So we're trying to find out the extent of use and some examples of uses in SUNY, and then we can use that perhaps to discuss or to get results back from the specific users, or we could use it to organize presentations and so forth. But
can we facilitate the use of adaptive learning now?
Well, to facilitate it, I think we need to find out more about what each package does, and we need to find more information on how it's working within SUNY and elsewhere.
Okay.
So I think that would be the next step, that we'll evaluate the results once we get the results. But I think we have to get more results before we could do much with that.
I mean, I'd be very interested in finding out more about it and trying it now. I've been trying to do things like that for a gazillion years, but didn't have the software.
So I'm going to
put together was boring.
In 3 cases so far, I have written to the companies where I did have a direct contact with their chief operating officer, asking for accounts for everyone. But I've only done that in the last day or 2. So I'm hoping that we'll hear back from them, and I'll do that with all the others. I've just been a bit buried. I'm sorry. I know I'm a bit behind on things, but
you're doing a great job, John. You really are.
Yeah.
This is Mary again. To Janet's point, though, since we have 3 surveys and we're not using it for qualitative data, we're just gathering information. Is there any reason not to look at those?
Oh, we can look at them.
We are.
Would
that
you
would guide us into contacting
Martha,
those
would you like to share the screen? I'll stop.
Yeah. Here, hang on. Yeah. All right, and just need to. Here we go. do we want to look at, yeah, we probably want to look at the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay, great. And that's not what I want. Okay, sorry. There we go.
And one thing you could do also is you could share view access, a link to that with everyone in the
Ooh,
group.
we're up to 4. Okay. And one of them's from Empire State College, though. Okay. And now.
Audie, do you fill out that link?
Sorry?
I bet you that was Audie.
No, it was not me.
No,
Okay.
But I know how to push.
Okay.
Nathan Wiley. So, okay. So let me see if this is what we want. Forgive me if it's, okay, that's not what we want. Oh, sorry. New tab. John, I'm not nearly as good at this as someone as you are. Okay. Let me try it again. I just need to find the right one.
The easiest thing is just to share your screen and hop over to it.
Okay, let me do that then.
Otherwise, sometimes you lose it if you switch from one file to another.
Oh, okay, let me do that then. So I'm just going to share my screen. Come on. Share, and then I'm going to hop over to that, and then oh, there it is right there. Okay, so can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
That was way too easy. I'm now highly embarrassed. Okay. So if we want, we can go to show summary of responses. And yeah, that just shows us like how they responded. But would you rather see that, or would you rather see the actual spreadsheet?
Actually, if you scroll down, we could see the responses to each question. With only 4, it's not going to be that hard.
Okay, so far these are the 4 that we've heard from. And why am I? And summary, and it just keeps flipping back and forth. Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, good. All right, there we go. Sorry. So primary role looks like 25% faculty, 25% instructional support, and 50% administration. Is there? We probably just want to see, like, what tools they're using, right? Or
well,
is there anything specific?
Curious about all of it, but it looks so far like they're all using publisher provided materials.
Yeah. Oh, music appreciation. So 3 of them are using something called LMR, and then Waymaker, 2 of them.
Learner, apparently.
Learner, yeah. Oh, Learner. Okay. And then. Okay. Is it more effective compared to, and most of them find it more effective than traditional forms of instruction. And let's see. Interesting. Oh, okay. So I will share this with everyone because I think there's a lot of information here, but it looks like so far it's a little early as far as just how effective it is. But overall, like their gut says it is pretty effective, which is good. Tell me if I'm going too fast. I'm just sort of reading it and scrolling through. And no one right now is offering entire programs based on adaptive learning. And most of them, it's as a supplement. There's one who's using it in a number of ways, like as an entire course, as in a number.
Kind of afraid to see the ADA compliant thing.
Oh, okay.
The do not know is kind of scary, but yeah.
Yes, it is. Oh, okay, but at their own choice. Okay, so Waymaker and other were evaluated for accessibility in-house. Oh, okay. So the educational technologist in one examined Waymaker, and they found it ADA compliant. That
varies. I know the economics textbook through both through the open text and the Waymaker packages are not compliant, or the content isn't. Which actually surprised David Wiley and the author of the text, who I talked to there. But
yeah, it's a lot harder than you think it is to do that. So, or than most people I think it is. And then I sort of split it off a little bit. So, and there do not appear to be any answers for the split off parts. And the split off parts start with, do the learning outcomes. Oh yeah, and that's because all of them said the learning outcomes matched the learning outcomes in the course. So they didn't have to make any adaptations for that. So that's what we have so far.
Okay. It's a start. I was hoping we'd have someone who is actually using one of the main packages as a primary text, but you know, this information is still useful because, you know.
Yeah, it's good to know, you know, that the learning outcomes appear to be matching, you know, what the course outcomes are so far. And so far we know Waymaker and Learner are two of the main ones. And that ADA compliance, as we expected, continues to be an issue. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Good, yeah. All right.
So
I'll stop sharing.
So the next question is, when should we meet?
All right.
How are people's schedules? If we were to meet again in 2 weeks, that would be, let me see, 2 weeks from now would be the 21st. That's probably getting a little close to the holidays. Would you rather meet this year or begin meeting early next year? Preferences? I'm pretty open now, actually, for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Let me see.
Subgroups could meet, and as long as we move forward on gathering information, it's probably not that pressing we meet until we actually get more information. But it does provide a reminder to start doing things. Like, it reminded me I should start putting more of this information together that I picked up at OLC.
I'm available on the 21st and also next January. I take your point that we're gathering information, so maybe we don't have much to say, I don't know. But the other point about the date being a deadline to help us get work done is also valid.
Yeah.
Preferences? Any other?
I'm available on the 21st, but I'm also like, you know, at this point, or we can meet at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the new year.
I'm fine either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out the 21st probably to the 2nd.
Yeah.
Maybe the first week in January?
Yeah, that'd work well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to pick a meeting now, or should I do a survey, a doodle poll? Because there are a number of people who aren't here, but.
I'm back as of Wednesday the 2nd, so.
Okay, well, I can start a survey on the 2nd and do it for about a week.
Okay.
So a doodle poll then?
Probably be safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Just because not everyone's here.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Well, if people from the subcommittee that's going to be working on it want to stick around a bit, maybe we can find a meeting time for that group.
This is the second subcommittee, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yours is moving forward. The survey's out, but this way maybe we can divide up the tasks and try to get more information.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, and I'll send out a reminder, and I'll include everyone in on it. So let me know if there's any concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And if we don't see each other beforehand, have a happy holiday, everyone.
Same to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
John, I don't even remember which subgroup I belong to anymore.
Well, you're welcome to be on any of them. So feel free to stay.
I think I missed that meeting, and I manually added my name to something in the document, but I don't remember which one it was.
One of the folders. So actually, I can check that now.
I have the same problem Audi has.
So let me look. But again, it doesn't matter because, you're welcome to be on both.
I think it might have been like the webinar one. I can't remember, but it might have been
that's possible. Okay. I thought it was in one place. It's not. Let me see. Where did we do that? Oh, subcommittees. There we go. A document that's called Subcommittees, which lists it. We've got Karen, Mary Jo, me, Dave, Jeff, Jeff Dugan, and Chilton, it looks like. But anyone who wants to be on it, and Audi, you are on the webinar planning one. And Janet, you're on the survey one.
They just finished, right?
Yes.
Goodbye.
You're done.
Well, except there will be some analysis and writing up the results from the survey. But the survey is, the immediate tasks are done until we get more information from.
Okay, thank you.
And Janet, you're also on the symposium planning committee.
Oh, but we're not there yet, right?
We're a ways from that yet, yes.
Then have a nice afternoon, young people.
Okay, very good. Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
So I guess you don't need me either, right?
Unless you'd like to stay and be part of this subgroup too.
Sorry, I need to finish talking to students, and they keep emailing me. So
okay.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
I got an email. I've got a student coming in who needs a late withdrawal sign, but
I know. be in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So, Karen, and what times work for you?
I am pretty open. I'm actually pretty open. People just really run in and scream help. My grade book isn't calculating next week. I'm only taking the week off between Christmas and New Year, so I'm pretty open right now. The 14th is not good. Next Friday is not good. Other than that, I can do any time.
Do we want to do the 21st?
That would work for me.
We could do that. So let's
just do it.
Any particular times work better? I have nothing scheduled. Well, I suppose before I say that, I am recording 3 podcasts next week. Let me just make sure.
I can do the 20th, the 18th, the 17th, the 21st. I'm out, so I'm.
Okay.
Right.
But that's okay. I can follow up. I'll just be traveling on that day, so it'd be difficult for me.
20th would be better than the 21st for me. I may not.
20th is fine for me.
Yeah, let's do that.
I can do that.
Great.
Okay. Anytime?
The only conflict I have is 2 in the afternoon. Other than that, I'm open.
Yeah, and as long as it's after 10 for me.
Do you want to just do it at 10? And that way, if people want to do things later in the day, you could be free? Does that work?
That works.
10 works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it working for Mary Jo? Yeah, good.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we got it. Good.
And John, we're gonna use yours.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
I'll send out an invite and I'll send it to everyone on the list. Is everyone on that list?
I hope so.
Just to be sure.
I added myself to this group.
Okay, yeah, if you're not on it, add yourself and then we'll be sure to get you. I'll send it out. I'll send an invite out.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a good day. And
thank you so much.
And
Thanks
good
for
luck with the
your work
rest of
on
the semester.
spreadsheet. That's really good.
Yeah, really.
Thanks.
Well, I thought maybe that would help organize it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.